In this interactive guide, you'll learn how to create labels and label policies with Microsoft Purview Information Protection. Here, you'll see how information protection can help you classify sensitive information across your organizations, enforce protection settings, and prevent data loss. This is the Purview Compliance Portal, where we are logged in as a compliance administrator. We are going to remind once more that the compliance.microsoft.com is the old classical portal. To go to the new portal, you go to purview.microsoft.com. But this interactive guide was created with the old portal. We're going to scroll down. And here we're going to expand information protection. And then we're going to click on labels. Sensitivity labels let you classify email messages, documents, sites, and other locations to protect your organization's data. We already have some labels created over here, but let's expand this highly confidential label. And it's important to notice that to present labels to users in a logical or in logical groups, you can include one or more sub-labels under a parent label, which is what this is about. The highly confidential has several other labels. So in this case, again, we'll create a sub-label under the highly confidential label, which will be used to classify highly confidential data related to research and development activities. So if you have been following the series of demonstrations, you notice that in the first one, we already created a custom sensitive info type for the research and development department, and that's what we are working with. So these videos are in a series, so I would recommend that you watch them if you really want to learn how this all work together. So we're going to click on these three dots, which is the actions there. And here we see a menu with a whole bunch of things, but what we need to do here is click on create sub-label. We need to give it a name, a display name, and a display name for users that can be the same as the display name that you use for, but usually on the display name for users, you want it to be something a little bit more descriptive so that when users see that label, they know what this is all about. If we scroll down, the, the sub-label inherits the color of the parent label, and this is what this is all about. Whatever the highly confidential uh, color is, it will be inherited here. Click on next. Here you can define the scope of the label. Note that Microsoft Purview now protects information across your organization, including files, emails, meetings, Microsoft 365 groups, SharePoint sites, and even schematized data assets. Okay, and other locations. Microsoft is constantly uh, upgrading and adding more locations, but important to keep that in mind. Yes, there are ways to extend this to on-premises as well. So just wanted to throw that there. Next, we're going to choose the protection settings for label items. Okay. And in this case, we are going to apply. So you could apply or remove encryption. In this case, we're going to apply. We can apply content marking And then these are, headers, footers, and watermarks, items that, uh, you know, uh, to give visibility so that people see what the item is. And we can protect teams and meetings and chats as well, which we're going to be doing here. I'm going to click on next. Encryption settings allow you to control who can access files and email messages that have this label apply. So this is one way to use encryption, which is so important in today's age, especially in the era of artificial intelligence, when we're handling sensitive data, so that if data is exposed, um, if it's encrypted, then it's not going to go into the wrong hands, right? So anyway, we're gonna use continue with encryption settings, because remember, you can either remove or configure encryption. In this case, we're gonna configure encryption. If we scroll down, we are going to, there's a couple of things here worth noting. So we can assign permissions now, or let users decide. In this case, we are going to assign permission, basically meaning, these are the peoples and groups that can have access to this sensitive info type that we defined before. The user access to content expire basically mean that we can work with expiration. So maybe this is a temporary project and you want this permission access to expire in a month or a year or whatever. That's another control. And the allow offline access means that, uh, let's say that you are on a place where there's no internet and you have no way to connect to the sensitivity label servers, right? Then this allow you to work offline, disconnected, and then when you connect, everything will be sync, right? Click on the assign permission. And again, so we'll give the product research and leadership groups permissions to access content that had this label applied. This is a highly sensitive label. And again, we don't want anybody in the company or out of the company to have access to this. So we're going to click on add users, and we're going to look for the product and research group. And we're also going to add the leadership. These are groups in our company. We are also going to add a specific email addresses or domain. So, this company is working with an external partner, and some people need to have access to that uh, documentation as well. So we're going to add Patty F at fabricant.com. Remember that we are at contoso.com. So this is a complete different company. We're going to add that. I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to choose the permissions that we want. By default, it's co-author, but maybe we don't want that. We are going to basically customize these permissions. And these are the settings that we want the people to be able to do. Whatever we do not select over here, the people cannot do. For example, we don't want people to be able to print this highly sensitive document, right? We don't want people to copy and extract content. We don't want people to forward. Whatever the case may be, there's a whole bunch of things that we can control. There's granular permission controls here. We're going to click on next, on save rather, and then save. Click on next. And so we are going to enable content marking to add a custom header to content that has this label applied. And we're going to add a header. We're going to customize this header. We're going to call it classified as highly confidential. We're going to change the font to 14. The color, we're going to change it to red, and we're going to align this to the center of the document. And then we're going to click on next. Okay. Next, we are going to configure the settings for Teams meetings that have this label applied. This is specific to Teams. We are going to control who can present. We don't want everyone to be able to present in a meeting with this. and we're going to let the meeting organizers decide. We're also going to control watermarks, and we don't want to apply watermarks to the shared content. Okay, we don't want to apply watermark to everyone's video feed, and we want to prevent copying chat content to the clipboard. Those are the things we want to do here. Okay. Next, we are going to enable auto labeling for files and emails. So we're going to choose on, we're going to scroll down. So we are going to add a condition to automatically apply this label to content that contains the research and development sensitive info type that we created before, right? It's a technical note, so sensitive information types or SITs are pattern-based informations that detect sensitive items within your organization. And we already learn about that. But if you have not watched that previous videos, I would encourage you to watch. This is the second video in this series. We're going to add a condition, and the condition is that the content contains, and we're going to add that it contains sensitive info types. And the sensitive info types is the research and development that we created before. I'm going to click on add. The confidential label, we're going to set it to medium. We can, group by either all of these or any of these. We're going to leave it like that. I'm going to click on scroll. And here in the when content match these conditions, we want to recommend that users apply this label. So we're going to let the users decide, hey, and remember, this sensitive info type is only a selective executives and people. They know what they're doing. So this is not, remember that this is, uh, not everyone has permission to this anyway. So we trust these people to basically, when they see this, to recommend, to apply the right permissions, right? We are going to, you can type a message there if you want to, but um, normally when you're working with a specific people like this, they know the implications and they know what they're doing. Um, in other circumstances, you could not let people have any say and you can apply it automatically, but not in this case. Okay. Next, we are going to select the protection settings that you want to take effect when this label is applied to teams, groups, or sites. So this is for private and external user access settings. And we want external sharing and conditional access settings. Because remember, we have partners at Fabricant.com, another company, that need to have access to this. Okay. We are going to define the privacy and external user access settings. We are going to limit the visibility and access to members of teams or group. And so we're going to select private here. And we'll allow Microsoft 365 group owners to invite external users as guests, because we have, again, guests that need to have access to this. Next, we'll limit external sharing from label SharePoint sites to existing guests. And so we're going to choose that. And we're also going to use Azure Conditional Access to protect labels SharePoint sites. I'm going to scroll down. And then here, we're going to allow limited web-only access. So, with web-only access, from unmanaged devices. This option also prevents users from downloading or printing files. Okay. Gonna click on next. You can configure auto labeling for schematized data assets in Microsoft Purview data map and all that stuff. We're not going to get into that for now. We're not working with SQL and Azure. Again, we can, this means Azure Synapse, Azure Cosmos, AWS, RDS, and there's a whole other bunch that we support. If you wanted to learn more about that, there's documentation for that as well. Click on next. Um, review the settings and create the label. You can go back and change things if you wanted to. Then we're going to create the label. Now, to make the label available for use, a policy must be created to publish or auto apply, first. Um, for the purpose of this guide, we'll choose don't create a policy yet, and we're going to look at how to create a policy after exiting the wizard. But it's just important to notice that again, you create a sensitivity label, but that label it's not yet visible to user. To be visible to user, you need to publish that label to user. So, which is that. But we're not going to do it in this step. I'm going to click on don't create a policy yet. Okay. Now we're going to go to label policies. And here we are. To create a label policy, to publish the label you just created, then we're going to click on publish the label. You need to choose the sensitivity label that you want to publish. And we're going to choose the highly confidential, which is the parent, remember? And this is the research and development that we created. Okay. Click on add and then click on next. Next, you can choose the admin units or set of users that you would like to assign this policy to. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll keep the default settings and continue through the steps. For those of you who do not know what an admin unit is in Microsoft 365, an admin unit is, in a way, it's just a way to group and organize assets for the purpose of governance. So let's say that a company have offices in the United States and offices in Europe, and you want the users, certain admins, the admins in Europe to manage the stuff in Europe, and the admins in the United States to manage the stuff in the United States. And that's a very common thing. Then you would create, in that case, two admin units, one for the US and one for Europe, and that kind of stuff. So that's in a nutshell what it is. There's a lot more to it, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. If you need to learn more, you can just um, use your favorite uh, artificial intelligence or just Bing that up or Google that up. All right. Next, you can choose the, again, admin units. We're not going to do that. But so here you publish to users, and the labels that you selected, right, will be available to the users, groups, and email security groups. And so this is important. So understand that, especially if you are, if you're preparing for any certification in Microsoft, data security and that kind of stuff. So it's important to, this would be a tricky question because you need to know to what kind of groups you can publish label to, right? So you can publish this to individual users, to distribution groups, to mail-enabled security groups, and Microsoft 365 groups that you choose here. So all of these are different um, groupings. Now, if you don't click here and choose anything, basically you are applying to all. And you have to be very careful before you apply or you publish a label to all. You need to have tested and played with this in a pilot user group. This can be very disruptive if you publish the wrong label. Let's say that you have a label that would encrypt data and you publish that to everyone, you could create a mess. And believe me, I've been there, I've done that. I've made mistakes that have created disruption. And that's why I always stop on this step over here to emphasize that. Anyway, click on next. Next, we're going to configure settings for the labels included in this policy. User must provide a justification to remove a label or lower its classification. Okay, and we're also going to require users to apply a label to their Power BI content. Again, there's all the settings that you can read and learn more about if you wanted to. Click on next. Configure through the wizard. So um, we're not going to be applying a default label. And what is, let me explain this. So it's a best practice that, at least for documents and files, that you have a default label so that automatically a label is applied, right? And we'll talk about more about this in future videos, but um, in this case, we are not going to be applying default labels, so we're going to walk through it. So here we'll configure emails to inherit the highest priority label from any attachment with labels applied. So what does that mean? Let's say that you are sending an email with a set of permissions, but then in the email, there is an attachment, and the attachment has permissions that are higher or labeled that it's higher than the email itself. So what we're saying is we want to use the most restricted permission. So, or rather, we want the email to inherit the highest priority label. We're talking about priorities of label, right? So that's basically what we're doing over here. Because remember, we can send an email with or without attachments. And the content of those attachments may have different priority labels, right? Maybe one has low, maybe one has high. We want the highest priority label to be applied. That's what we're saying here. I'm going to click on next. Again, no default label here either. Neither here, neither here. We need to give it a name. The name, of course, is mandatory. Now, notice that the description here is optional, although it is best practice to have, um, descriptive descriptions for all these things so that people understand what when they see this policies. Click on next, review and finish, and then click on submit. So the policy has been created. It's important to know that it can take up to 24 hours to publish the labels in the selected users and apps. So this is not right away. So if you go into if you open a document, you're one of those users, and you open in this case we publish to all users. But if you open a document and you don't see this thing yet, it means that it has not propagated through your tenant, through your environment. Okay. Now, the order the sensitivity label, um, actually, let me go back over here. The order the sensitivity label policies are listed reflects the priority which they will be applied. The label policy with the highest priority is shown at the bottom. Okay, so again, the lowest is on the top, the highest is at the bottom here. It's important to know that. And if I click on the three dots, I can move it up. So if I want to change orders of, priorities, I can do that as well. Now let's see how to apply a sensitivity label in Microsoft Teams. So we click on this apps. I'm going to go to Teams, and we are going to create a team from scratch. And when I'm creating the team, this sensitivity label has already been propagated. So now I can choose my sensitivity label. The user can choose that to create a team. So remember, this is leadership. They're working with this highly sensitive, documents, and they are going to set it as highly confidential. This is the one that we created. And of course, we when we created the label, we decided that can only be private. That's why, public and uh, organizational-wide teams are disabled, because we said that this is going to be private. Okay, I'm going to give it a name, and we're gonna call this Teams Project Obsidian. I'm gonna give it a description, although it is optional here. I'm gonna click on Create, and there it is. We're going to add members to this team, the research, and we're also gonna add this external user as a guest. Remember that we decided that through the steps, and we're going to click on add and then close. Let's add some files to these teams. So we're going to upload some files. Okay. Now notice that there's no sensitivity yet. Okay. Let's open this file. And if we try to print, notice that print is still available. Now in the label, we chose that the document that this type of documents won't be able to be printed. And the reason why print is still available is because that sensitivity label has not been uh, applied yet. So we can print it if we wanted to. Okay. All right. I'm going to close this. Now, if we click over here, this is where you can choose the sensitivity drop down arrow menu, right? So if I click on this, here are all my labels. This is how users can apply labels if labels are not applied automatically, right? Because remember, so there are two ways you can apply labels. You can let users apply the labels, or you can automatically apply those labels. It depends. In most cases, there are many labels should be automatically applied. And then you give users the choice to remove or lower a label, right, with justification. We'll see that later on, depending on the case. But in this case, we are letting the users choose the label. And remember that the only people that can access this are a specific, people that working with this highly sensitive project, and they better know what they're doing, right? So click on that, research and development. So now we are applying the document so the sensitivity label now um, appears in this status. So let's see. If we click on the header tag, we'll see the label has been applied. Remember that we chose this red color to be applied to that. So the sensitive content in this document is now protected. So if we go back into file and then we look into a print, we notice that printing now is unavailable because the permissions that we assigned, um, to the sensitivity label. Okay. Team members inside and outside the organization who have the appropriate permissions can co-author. Remember that we selected that, can co-author the encrypted document at the same time, right? So to see anyone else who is working on the document, we can select this user thing, and then we'll see all the users that are working on this document at the same time. Okay. If we click on editing, and so remember that we are within the Teams app. So we open the document within the Teams app. What happens when we open the documents into the desktop app, right? So again, we'll see that classified as highly confidential. Here we see the footer that we put over there. And here are the sensitivity labels. If we click here, notice that we can basically choose the label. We can change it and all that kind of stuff. So highly confidential contains several sub labels, and we can basically choose that with justification if we wanted to. In some cases, you may want to upgrade a label, or you want to lower the label, whatever the case may be. In those cases, when you create a label, you can give the users the choice to, um, you know, to choose the label that it is most appropriate. Okay, just as an example, on Microsoft, we have default labels applied. So when you create a label, uh, labels are applied automatically. And we have a label called general that it's applied to all documents that we create in Microsoft, assuming that, well, whatever you create within Microsoft is Microsoft uh, data, right? But let's say that you create a personal document, has nothing to do with business. We actually have a label called non-business. And then so if I create a document that is personal, then I can change the sensitivity label to non-business because it's not related to Microsoft. That's one example. Another label that we use is public, and it's basically for marketing department, things that we can share with the public. So if you're creating a document that is going to be shared with the public, then you choose that label. And there is a little justification box that, something simple, say, hey, this label no longer applies and stuff like that. All of this is configurable, right? All right, let's close out of this. And now let's create a new document that contains sensitive information. So we were working with documents that were already created, but we're going to create one out from scratch. Now, notice that now this documents have the sensitivity label. Okay, actually this is the one that we apply the sensitivity label. Okay, I'm going to create a document from scratch with Word within Teams. And so notice that this document contains some of the words that we created on the sensitive info type before, Project Obsidian. Um, that was on the first video that we created. And we have a policy tip over here. It says your organization recommends that you change the sensitivity label to highly confidential. And this is one of the settings that we chose. So we're going to click on change now. And then now the document um, is, has that in the footer. And if we click on this, we can see that label right there, the markings, right? Close. Now let's take a look at how the label or the labeling policy protects sensitive information in Outlook. I'm going to create an email. We're going to be sending this email to our partner, right, externally. And notice that, again, because we are sending, information that contains that the word Project Obsidian is one of those keywords that it's highly confidential, right? It's a secret project for a manufacturing company that contains, highly sensitive information. You don't want anybody to know that. So again, here's the tip, your organization recommends that you change the sensitivity label. So before you change that. So, and if you click that, now it has been changed, click on send. Okay. Now we're going to switch to the point of view of Patty, this user, who tries to read the document. So Patty has an email, is a Gmail account, right? We send her the message. She got this document. Click on it. She cannot open the message right away. What she gets, it's a link to the message, right? When she clicks on read the message still in the um, Microsoft 365 tenant, where it came from. When you click on this, so the user is notified that the message is protected and it is prompted to sign in with a one-time passcode. Okay, so sign in with a one-time passcode, and so she'll get that passcode into the email. She types it in, she continues, and then now she can get the document. And notice again, so the important things to notice over here is that sensitivity labels travel with the document wherever the document goes. That's the important thing to know there. Okay. Now, there's another user. Um, there's a user that has received an email that contains a link to a product announcement draft stored on a SharePoint, right? Now, Alex, if we click on this, sorry, you don't have permission because Alex is not a member of those groups that has permission to open this type of documents. Just wanted to show that there. Okay. Now, moving on, in a Power BI, any end user with the appropriate permission can apply sensitivity labels to reports, dashboards, data sets, and data flows. So we're going to be creating a report containing um, a projected sales data for Project Obsidian, for example. I'm not going to be explaining this if you don't know Power BI, because that's not the, but I'm just going to be working with this, right, with the labels. And so the report has been created and its content it's protected. Okay, that's the point that we're going to make, and you can see that over here. Okay? If you want to learn more, so um, this is, when a sensitivity label is applied to a data set or report in the Power BI service, it's possible to have the label trickle down and be applied to content that is built from that data set or report. So this capability is called downstream inheritance, and you can learn more about that if you wanted to. Okay. Now, together with other capabilities for applying sensitivity labels, downstream inheritance helps ensure that sensitive data remains protected throughout its journey. And that's the important thing over here. All right, so with that, we conclude um, this video about applying these sensitivity labels. If you found this information useful and informative, please remember to like my content, subscribe to my channel, more importantly, so that you are informed when new content is coming your way. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next episode of this series of data security.